Hello, this is William from Visual Components. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create particle systems in the 3D world. Particle systems are swarms of objects that you can render during a simulation that use textured materials. So these particles can help you simulate fire, smoke, liquids if you want, as well as fireworks as you can see right now in the 3D world. So let's go and get started. I'm first going to show you how to create a particle system behavior in a component. So I'll go to the Create tab here. And I'm actually going to create a new component. So I'll create a frame feature, which will also be the location for the particle system in the component. I'll now go to the Behavior tab, and from there I'm going to create a Python script behavior. And this is what I'll use to create the particle system behavior as well. So let's go and get a better view of it. You now want to get a handle for the component object. So comp equals get component. And you can now use the create behavior method with the component object. So I'll first name the variable PS for particle system. You can name it whatever you want, it's fine. So comp.create behavior. And I want to use a constant here, so VC particle system. And I now have to name the behavior, so I'll just name it PS. And I'll compile the code. And now what you want to do is go ahead and click the component's root node here. This will update the component and will also display the behavior here in the menu. So go ahead and comment this out. I don't want to create it again. The next thing you want to do is go ahead and define the properties of the particle system. So you can go here to the Behavior tab and double left click the behavior to access its properties. So you don't have to code all of these in the Python script if you don't want to. Now the most important thing is to define the location of the particle system for its frame property. So that frame feature I created, that will be the location. The next most important thing is to define the material for the particle system. Now you have to make sure that you're using a material that has a texture assigned to it, or a VC bitmap object. Otherwise you won't see the particles in the 3D world. So remember, they must have a texture. So what I'm going to do now is show you how to create a material, save it to the 3D software, and use it to render particles. So let's go ahead and close these properties. And I'll go to the Geometry tab here. And down here you want to go ahead and select this option here, Edit Materials. This will open a material editor to create new materials. So I'll start by first creating a glass type material. I'll just make it white. And now you notice I have options over here to load a texture file. Now the 3D software does come with predefined texture files that you can use. And I'll go and show you how to find those. So I'll click Load here. And they're actually in your public documents for Visual Components. So depending on your operating system, I'm going to go to Libraries, select Documents. I have many documents. And these are my public documents here for Visual Components. And you want to find this folder here called Bitmaps. So if you open it up, I don't have any TIFF files, but I do have Targa or TGA files. So you can notice I can actually show burns, some chrome effects if I want to, if I'm deburring. You can have fire, you can have light, stars, torch, and you can even have water effects if you want as well. So I'll start by actually having stars. Notice here is a texture file. It's 64 pixels by 64 pixels, so remember that. And you could go ahead and turn on environmental protection if you wanted to. And everything's good to go. Now I'll rename this material. I just don't want to call it glass, so I'll name it particle. And to that you just double left click. So just one click and then 2 clicks. You can now save this material in predefined library, or you can create your own, which is what I'm doing now. So I'm going to click the Save button, and I'm going to create a new material library. And these are in your local documents for Visual Components in your My Materials folder. So I'll just name this I won't name it My Materials, I'll just name it Example. And click Save. Alright, everything's good to go now, so I'll close this out. And now I need to assign this material to the particle system behavior. So go to the Behavior tab, double left click, and now when I click this drop down menu here, hey, there's my material. So we've created a particle system behavior as well as a material to render the particles in the 3D world. What you need to do now is create a trigger for when the particle system happens during a simulation. And to do that, you need to create a signal and connect it to the particle system. So I'll go and close the properties here. And I'm going to create a Boolean type signal. And I'm now going to connect it to the particle system. So connections, PS, like so. So now whenever this signal's value changes, it's automatically updated to the particle system and will act as a trigger. So I'll close this out, and I'll access my Python script behavior. And let's go ahead and do some coding. So I'll first get the signal object. So signal equals comp.findBehavior. And the default name is Boolean signal. And just during the onRun event, you can see how simple it is. You just want to get the signal object, use the signal method to communicate its value to true. So now if I compile the code, let's watch the fireworks. So you can see there's my particle system. Now every time you call this signal will also trigger when the particle system happens. So if I go ahead and create a loop now in the Python script, so I'll say for I in range 10. Whoops, get that better. Now the important thing to remember is that the particle system runs on an interval, so you don't want to you want to create a delay. So right now the interval is 1 second for the particle system, so I'll create a delay of 1. I'll reset, compile again, and boom, boom, there we go. And you can see it just keeps on going. Let me go and stop the simulation, and I'll change my display settings so you can see the particles better. So I'll turn off the floor and the grid, and I'll also change the background color to black without a gradient. So now if I zoom on in, let's watch this happen. I'm now going to show you how to trigger a particle system using a component state, in this case a robot. So during the robot's program, I'm going to change its state, and as a result, trigger the particle system. In order to do this, you need to set up your statistics behavior in the robot and connect it to its RSL executor. So right now in the 3D world, I have a robot selected. I'll go to the Create tab. I'll access the robot statistics behavior here. And I need to make sure it has default states mapped. So it's a lot of properties. I'll scroll on down and click this access button here for the states property. And it does not actually have any states mapped, so I'll go and create default states by clicking this button here. Close this out, and I'll access the executor, and notice it already has the behavior connected to it for its statistics. So I can close this out, and now I can go to the Teach tab, and notice I have access to this RSL statement here called statistics. So this statement allows you to actually change the robot's state, so I can change it to busy, to break, whatever I want. So I'll go and create a small short routine. So let's actually go ahead and move the robot over here. I'll then change its state to be broken, and then I'll go ahead and move it all the way over here. Alright, so when I run the program, the robot moves in, and like that. I went ahead and created a particle system in a dummy component, so I'm now going to position it on the robot. So I'm going to use the PMP command, and I'm going to set the parent node for the particle system. So I'm going to use the mount plate right here. I'll now translate the particle system to be where I want it on the robot. So I'll use face center and orientation, and I'll snap it right there. So now when I run the simulation, notice that the particle system moves with the robot. I now need to set up a Python script to trigger the particle system when the robot's state changes. So to do that, I'll go ahead and go to the Create tab. And I don't need to work with the robot, I can go ahead and just work with the dummy component. I'll access its Python script. And now I need to get a handle for the robot in the 3D world. So I'll first get the application object. So app equals get application. And now I'll get the robot. So app.findComponent. And instead of getting the robot's name, I'll do it a different way. I'll say comp.parent. Since the particle system component is parented to a node in the robot, I'll use the parent property, and from that node I'll get the component owner dot name. So if I actually print robot.name now, you can see I get the name right here in the message panel for articulated robot. So now I can get the statistics behavior in the robot. So let me do that now. So statistics equals robot.findBehavior statistics. And now I'm going to create my own function for what I want to happen. So say my function. And the event I'm going to use to trigger the particle system is called onStateChange. So you can find that in VC statistics. So it takes 4 parameters. So I'll just create some dummy ones. Param2, param3, param4. Not too concerned about, what happens. And I just want to make sure everything works out. So I'll first print, hello world. I'm going to get my statistics object. So statistics, on state change equals my function. So when the robot state changes, it'll trigger that function and it should print hello world. So now if I compile the code and I run the simulation, yep, it prints hello world. So now what I can do is go ahead and trigger the particle system now with my function. So I'll just go ahead and say signal, communicate its value to be true. All right, so let's go ahead, compile that, move it out of the way. So now I'll run the simulation. Boom, particle. All right, let's go ahead and create a delay so we can see it better. So I'll create a delay of 1. So I'll delay it once again, and signal.signal of false. So it doesn't matter if it's true or false, as long as the signal is changing, it will trigger the particle system. So I'll compile this again, and I'll go and do what I did before. I'll go and change the background color to be no floor, no grid, and make it black. Oh, all right. So now let's run it again. And notice that right when it reached that position 1 and the state changed, the particle system was triggered, like so. All right, that concludes the video. If you have any more questions, please feel free to visit our community at community.visualcomponents.net. And I do recommend you upload your own examples of particle systems to our community as well. And as always, have a wonderful day.